what's going on? Welcome to another episode of Melanated Artist in Performance. On this episode, I have a talk with Mike Casimir, a violist with the St. Louis Symphony. We have a discussion about the importance of music education, the joy of music, creating music during the pandemic, his auditioning process for major symphonies, and his performance of Deep River in honor of Elijah McClain. So sit back, relax, and enjoy episode 2 of Melanated Artist in Performance. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to everybody. Welcome to the second episode of Dynamically Melanated Gifted Artists. My name is Titus. I am a music teacher out of Maryland. I teach middle school band and orchestra. And this is a podcast where I'll be focusing on people of color who are in the fine arts. So I'm looking to speak to musicians, artists, actors, dancers, just people of color, Black, Hispanic, indigenous, just people who are in predominantly white spaces who are performing artists. So tonight I have as my guest Mike Casimir. Did I say that correctly?
Yeah, it's fine. Mike,
Okay.
Michael,
So Mike is a violist, and he is currently performing he's currently a member of the St. Louis Symphony. He is an educator, music producer. He's performed with some big time groups, the Toronto Symphony, the New York Philharmonic, Philadelphia Orchestra, has studied at Juilliard, the Curtis Institute. So it's kind of a big deal. And I'm definitely looking forward to speaking with him tonight. And we're going to get started. So I am curious to know how you got started in music. Do you come from a musical background? And most importantly, why the viola? I love the viola, but yeah.
That's good.
So.
That's a good start. So I originally was a violinist. I started when I was 2 years old. And I come from a musical family for sure. My dad is a teacher in the Philadelphia school district currently, and my uncle, his brother, also is a teacher, but he lives in Spain now. But he used to teach in the Philadelphia school district as well. And they would teach. They both taught strings, like violin and viola. So they kind of both started me at that young age, and then I switched to a different teacher at the age of 8. And then I went to Settlement Music School, and I studied with Lee Snyder for about 10 years. And then the path to viola is like, I don't know, it's weird. Not that weird. Well, so I, I was in the first college I went to was Oberlin College and Conservatory, because I was like doing a double degree at the time. But I was in a string quartet class, like of just freshmen, and the violist, his name is Aaron Mossberg. I think he's in Pittsburgh Symphony now, but
Okay.
he was our violist, and during all the breaks, he would just put his viola down, and I'd be like, hey man, like can I kind of like mess around on it, because he was a great violist, and I was like, man, like how does he sound so good? I want to like just try to do what he's doing and whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And so he would let me play his viola during our breaks, and then after some point he was like, you should like play for my teacher sometime if you really like viola. And so that's what happened. I played for his teacher at one point, and he's like, hey, if you want to switch to viola and join our studio, you don't have to audition, you can just do it. And I was like, cool. And so that's kind of how I got started. There's other stuff in there too, like my dad was a violist, so you know how it is, like you see your parents do something and you think it's cool.
Right.
And so
Right.
and then like there's a few recordings out there of people that I've listened to. One of my favorite violists of all time, his name is Lawrence Power. He's a English violist, and I heard him play this piece by Mozart's Symphonia Concertante for the first time when I was maybe like 19 or 20, and I never heard that piece before. And you can go find the video on YouTube. It's really easy. It's him playing at BBC proms with Maxim Vengerov, and this was like at the height of YouTube and Vengerov like dominating classical music.
Right.
And I don't know. I mean, no offense to Vengroff, but I think he got outplayed by Lawrence Power, and so that was the first time I ever heard a violist outplay of a superstar violinist, and I was like, I didn't even
Okay.
realize that was possible.
Okay.
So when I heard that, it kind of made me think like, well, this is a little bit. It's not like the as people call it, like the black sheep of the string world or whatever. It actually has a voice, and if you do it right, it can really steal the show.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
yeah,
Okay. Yeah. When I started getting interested in music, um, of the strings, it was viola and then the cello because
cello's like a yeah.
I like that the low rich tones of the viola and the cello, and since I had kind of like longer fingers, I'm like, okay, well, maybe I'll do the cello, maybe the viola. I'm not sure, but didn't go either way. I played the clarinet, so either way, whatever.
That's kind of like
It's
the
all good.
viola. That's like
Right,
we,
right.
we share a lot of repertoire. So there you go.
That is true. That is true. Um, Growing up, did you have? Well, you said your father was or is currently a music teacher.
Yeah, I think he's taking a sabbatical this year, but but normally that's what he does. Yeah, yeah.
Okay. So then there was no problem as far as like support, as far as you getting into
Oh, for
music and
sure. Yeah, I mean, the support was always there. My parents have always been like, I mean, in some ways they were kind of, I wouldn't say forcing me, but like,
strongly encouraging.
yeah, strongly encouraging with
Right.
with physical violence. And I'm just kidding. But yeah, so like but no, it's like a lot of people don't have that growing up, and I think it's super necessary for something that is this risky of a career path. Like you need people in your back corner, especially your parents, because a lot of times I hear so many stories from a bunch of people who were at Juilliard with me or who were at Curtis with me, and you know their parents would even still be like, I don't know if this is the right path. You can always change. Like, you can always be a doctor. You can always blah, blah, blah. So it's like even at that level, people have the doubt coming from their parents, which is like wild. So to always have my parents like being like, you can do it. We'll cheer you on no matter what. We'll make it work no matter what. It's really nice to have. And I know a lot of people don't have that. So I've always, appreciated it.
I think from my experience when I was growing up, it seemed that sometimes, especially in the black community, sometimes it's it isn't seen as being a practical job because it's like, well, how are you going to how are you going to make money? It's like at the same time they encourage you playing your instrument, but as far as being a teacher of it and maybe teaching other people, they're just like, I don't know about that. So that's why I asked because from my experience from where I came from, because I grew up in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and
Mm-hmm.
it is culturally rich musically, but as far as like the support is kind of strange sometimes because it's
Yeah.
very like our people only play these instruments, the saxophone, the drums, maybe a
Bass.
trumpet, and then everything outside of that, it's like, I don't know anybody that plays the violin or the viola,
Right.
so that's
I
why
get that.
I asked, it's like, well, what was your support system like? Because I know a lot
Yeah.
of people, like you said, there is no support, you know, so that's good.
I mean, I think honestly it's just a lack of knowledge of the business. Like cuz even I mean, I'm only going to speak from an orchestral perspective because I'm not a teacher. Well, I mean like I am a teacher but like I'm not how you are a teacher, you know what I'm saying? So,
Right.
um I grew up both my parents, well, sorry, my dad is teacher in the Philadelphia School District and my mom works for the government. And my
Okay.
stepmother also teaches in the Philadelphia School District. But none of them knew really what the business was like, at least the orchestral business, like how
Right.
much money you were going to be
Right.
making,
Right.
like how rigorous the auditions can be, how rigorous the
Yeah.
tenure process can be, all these things. So I think it's really just a lack of knowledge. So I mean, at a certain point, I was kind of doing like uncharted territory for, I guess, the family. If you want to say it, like if this is a, a family effort to get me, I mean, I think you would consider this a family effort. I think most people who make it, in any respect in this business period, is definitely a family effort or some type of community effort for sure. But
Yeah.
especially when you make it to the orchestral level, because there aren't many of us out there. I mean, I think the quote is what, 1% or something like that, 1.7 or
Yeah.
1.4, whatever,
Yeah.
that statistic was not too long ago, which probably hasn't changed and it most likely got less. Anyway, but
Right.
all that being said, it's just that I kind of had to figure it out on my own because there was no roadmap, which a lot of other people I know in the business who are my friends, they had their parents or sometimes even in the orchestra that were about to join, stuff like that. So it's like they already kind of have an in of how this is all supposed to go. None of my family went to Juilliard. None of my family went to Curtis. They always wanted to, but they never did.
Okay.
So it's just they always wanted to play with the Philadelphia Orchestra. They never did. So it's like having to kind of like be that person that, is the pioneer, or not the pioneer, but just like taking that next step into the, what they've already built is kind of, I guess, where I'm at this point.
Right.
So,
Right. Okay. So you said you got started when you were 2. So
yeah.
how did that come about? Because strings are different because of you actually kind of grow with the instrument. You're not going to give a
Hmm.
clarinet a 2-year-old a clarinet because that's just they only come in one size, perspectively. So
Right.
how did that come
Yeah.
about?
So, my dad, that's his like his thing. I mean, I don't know if he wants to call it his thing, but I definitely have noticed that he is like a monster at starting people, and monster in a good way. Like he's really methodical about how he starts people. And I think, that's honestly just what happened. I just got a really great start, with us like getting set up well as far as like my mechanics and everything like that. But a story that I heard when I like as I got older, like my parents would reflect, and they said that, like, when I'd be sitting in the backseat of a car, like I'd always be like humming the songs, like always
Mm,
on key every single time, no matter like what, no, how rigorous the song was. I'd be like, you know, they Jackson 5 would be on and I'd be like the sixth Jackson in the back. Like it was like, it was just like one of those types of things. And
right,
um
right.
and I could tell the difference between a viola, violin, and cello like before the age of 5, like just like in an orchestra hearing it. So once they
Okay.
saw that, they were like, yeah, he's like, like he can hear what's going on. So like maybe we should really consider like pushing it more. And so that's kind of, you know, I think what happened. But the violin that I had at the time, I think that my dad got me was like an eighth, if not a 16th. It was like some crazy. Yeah, it was like super small. I think it's like about the size of my hand now. So, and we
Wow.
used to have it, but I think there was like I have a little cousin in the family. She's older now, but when when she was really young too, they wanted to start her, so they like took my first violin and gave it to her, and I don't know where it is now. It's like amongst the family, whatever. But
Wow,
yeah,
I didn't even know they came that small.
yeah, yeah.
That is interesting. Wow. Um, so why is music education important? Like why do you feel that this is something that is needed to be continued?
Uh, in what capacity? Like just knowing general
Encouraging,
music.
so I would say just kind of like encouraging, especially communities of color,
Hmm.
to, do something orchestrally, and know that people can be successful at it.
Okay. Um. Well, I think I'd say there's two parts to that my answer, I guess. The first would be just generally, I think music education is amazing, because there's so many, you know doctors or engineers or coders or chemists or whatever you want to, any field, that are people who are super successful. They
Mm,
have a musical background of some degree usually. like they played piano growing up, or they played. It's not a matter of like you actually pursuing it in the end. It's about how the music um, helps to construct your brain in a way that allows for um, I think the infinite access to creativity, which really is what it
Okay.
comes down to. And music allows you, one, I mean, so many different, like, you know, synapses like crossing and all that type of stuff, but it's one of the fields where you can have your left brain and your right brain working together. Um, and that doesn't happen all the time with a lot of the other subjects that people really like, you know, idolize.
Hmm.
So there's that, but I don't know. I mean, I think with our culture specifically, like Black culture, I mean, music is clearly very important. We are the driving force of, I would say, almost all music, at least in America. I mean, if not
Right.
globally.
Right.
Um, I'd say Drake is American, whatever. So
Yeah.
you know, we'll claim him. But you know what I mean. It's like it's just that type of. We are the driving force of music. So pretty much any type of music that we touch, we turn it into something else that ends up being the dominating thing of that genre. You know, if
Yep.
you take jazz, I mean, like we that's us, you know,
Yep.
rock and roll originally was us technically.
Yep.
So it's like there's so many genres where like the second that like the Black community is like, oh hey, maybe we should check this out, like we take it, we spin it, we flip it, we do what we do, and like we just and then also just, you know, in general with the religious upbringing, usually, I mean, I was brought up uh in a church. You know, whether, you know, people decide to practice it later on in life, it's a whole different conversation. But it's just
Right.
far as that natural background of rhythm. Like if you go into a Black church versus going into a white church, which I've done many times before, it's like, you know, in the Black church, the whole congregation is moving at the same time. They're clapping on 2 and 4. There's natural harmonization, yet nobody
Yeah.
can read music.
Yep. Yeah.
So it's like
Yep.
you have all this natural ability just ingrained in the culture. It seems like a missed opportunity to not also pursue this as well. You know, it's like, so a perfect example, Tiger Woods or Serena. It's like, you know, you have these extremely like what you want to call white, you know, mostly white, like fields, and then you
Hmm.
have a Black person be like have the same training as these people starting from a young age, and then we see they, what do, dominate the whole thing. So it's like, you know, it's just a missed
Gymnastics.
opportunity, I think. Yeah,
Yep.
yeah, that's another perfect one. Gymnastics is another great one. So I'm, you know,
Yeah.
I'm just waiting for hockey to really take off, but you know.
Yeah. Yep. Which I learned that we originated that, like in Canada, you
Yep.
know.
I know.
So
There's that documentary Black Ice, I think. I don't know if it's totally about that, but it's, I think, has shades to do with that. But
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. Um, all these things that have been hidden that are finally, I don't want to say coming to light, but getting the acknowledgement that we should have gotten a long time ago. So yeah, whole other conversation. Um, so when you are prepping for your orchestral audition, what, just kind of like take me through that. I did not want to go that route. Of course, my mom was just like, "You could be a performer," and I'm like, yeah, I could," but I know in my heart and soul, um, that was just not for me. Because
Mm-hmm.
part of it was I just didn't believe that that I could do it, because I was always just kind of late with my awareness of how good I was back then. Um, but also it's just the anxiety and just like the prepping, and it's just a lot. So yes, so let me stop rambling. So yeah, what is that process like?
So now I mean, I think my process has evolved over the last decade. I don't want to say that too loudly, but it's true. You know, I started taking auditions probably when I was like 25, 26 or
Okay.
something. So it wasn't a decade really. It's like half a decade, but whatever. So
Okay.
in the beginning, I would just, learn the excerpts like I'd learn any piece that I was going to perform for, a recital at college or for my lesson or whatever, I didn't really have any like method to the madness at that point because I was just so green. And so when I took my first audition, like, I think it was like for Minnesota for associate principal or something like that, and I advanced from prelims to semis, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is nothing. This is easy, like
Uh-huh.
whatever." And then after I didn't advance after that, but after that, I lost. I think maybe like six in a row. Like I didn't advance out of the first round. I like six in a row.
Okay.
So that's when I knew I was like, all right, well, I think either I got lucky or they weren't listening or blah blah blah. So after that, um, I kind of started to buckle down with a buddy of mine who's now associate principal in Dallas. His name is Matthew Sino. But we went to Curtis together. Well, we went to Juilliard together too. But when we were at Curtis together, we both won our first jobs like leaving, like when we were graduating from school at around the same time.
Okay.
And what we started doing is that we just played our excerpts for each other, or we'd play them at the same time and just kind of like go back and forth and just make comments. And like, we were like, and I mean, to this day, we still literally to this day before an audition, we'll still do that. So it's nice to have like another brain who clearly is extremely, competent and successful too, to
Hmm.
always be talking about excerpts and like workshopping it. Like the concept that you have to do it all alone, I think is something that school like forces down your throat, but the reality is that that's not true at all. Your best, I think you're one of the best things around you are the people around you. It's like, going to Duke, like let's say you went to Duke for basketball, like the whole point is to play against Kyrie, or the whole point is to play against Zion. Like you want great people around you to raise your game. So that's
Yep.
kind of like where I see like my friends like Matt or whomever that I like ask questions of like, hey, like what do you do this, like what fingering do you do here, what bowing do you do here, blah blah blah. But then for my last three auditions, which I'd say were all pretty successful, um I have a clear method that I've kind of set out for myself and even written down. And it's like a 6 week method, really. The first 2 weeks I call like nuts and bolts, where you
Hmm.
just, you kind of gather all the information that you need. So you look through bowings, you look through fingerings, you kind of get tempos. You pick recordings that you really like, kind of like, oh, I like Philadelphia Orchestra for this, or I like New York Phil for that, blah, blah, blah.
Yep.
You kind of do
Okay.
that for the first 2 weeks and just kind of get and also try to be able to play everything at tempo. It doesn't mean you have to be perfect. It just means you need to know where you need to be 4 weeks from now.
Okay.
So that's what I usually do for the first 2 weeks. The next 2 weeks of 3 and 4 is really detailed intonation work. So I take about maybe 2 to 3 excerpts a day, and I'll go from quarter tempo to full speed. Oh no, actually no, I don't think I go full speed. Yeah, not full speed. So it's just I think I'm between quarter tempo to about half speed, somewhere in there. And I play the excerpt super super slow, and I just make indication of where my intonation tendencies are, because I have my theory is that intonation, at least for string players, a lot of it has to do with how big or small your hand is and what type of tendencies it has naturally.
Yep.
Um, Especially with viola, because viola is so weird, because like the standard size of a violin is like what it is, so it's 14 inches as a body, and then the
Right.
cello I think is like 36 or something else, whatever it is, but they're both standardized. The viola, the problem is that like my viola now is 15 and 5/8 is like the size. But when I won my job in St. Louis, it was 17 inches. So the discrepancy between that is like massive. Yeah. And I've played maybe like 10 violas since I graduated from college, like from college to now. And they were all completely different sizes with different string lengths and all that type of stuff. And like because of all of that, your hand has to always be adjusting, so your intonation is always going to be a little like spotty. So I've come to the conclusion that it's just like I want to put my fingers down where they want to go. The problem is
Right.
that they just don't know the viola that well. So I have to
Okay.
like train my brain to know, think low for one or think high for three when I get to like these spots. And so that's kind of what I do for the next 2 weeks of week 3 and 4. is just really ingraining like, okay, for this note C sharp on whatever it has to be high, or this whatever low. And so I just do that for 2 weeks, and then the last 2 weeks is mostly um, recording myself, playing mock auditions for only like 3 people. I try not to play too much for. I mean, I try not to play for too many people because too many cooks in the kitchen. Number one, and
Yep.
number two, you have to find people who you can really trust. I find a lot of times that people play for people who there's like two types. Either the person's just going to say, "Oh, you sound fantastic," and just not help you, or they're just out to get you, where so every single thing you do they just are saying, oh, it's bad, oh, it's bad, oh, it's bad. So like those two types of people are not helpful. You need to find somebody that's a combination, not a combination of the two, but just somebody who's going to give you the truth, honestly. So that's why I kind of stick to like 3 people, no more than that. And and I don't really play for them until I'd say the last week. I play for one of them at the beginning of the 5th week, and then I play for that same person again at the end of the 6th week. So I have at least one person that can track my full progression. But
Okay.
usually I'll like that's only one person, then the rest I'll play for like towards the end of the process, where it's just like real tiny things of like do this, do that, don't do that. And that's kind of my thing. So I usually leave it to 6 weeks. Because a lot of prep, a lot of like the technical aspect of playing the viola for an audition at this point, I like it's not, I wouldn't, I feel pretty confident that like the technique aspect of playing excerpts isn't necessarily an issue for me. It's more of like what happens when you get on that stage, because anything can happen. Like you can just forget something randomly, or whatever, anything, literally anything can happen. So that's the part that I think I've tried to is more on a like kind of out of your hands.
Hmm.
um well, also like whatever the judges think is, or not judges, but the panel thinks is also out of your hands too. But like I think just the what happens on that day, like some people take beta blockers, I know, to kind of like calm their nerves and things like that. I don't really do that, but if you do it, more power to you, whatever. So
You're right.
that's
Right.
my process. There you go. That's a long answer.
No, that was a great answer. Because I definitely learned a lot just by listening to you. Question. So, you were talking about the two types of people. One, so kind of like your yes man, like, oh, you sound great no matter what you do, and then the people that you can't do anything right. So, for the people that are just kind of like you can't get it, are these your competition, or are they just like negative, or what? So what's the
Usually
deal
they're
with
just
that?
negative. I mean, like at this point, I'm not playing for people that I'm competing with, I'll say. So like for
Okay.
my buddy Matt, like I know at some point, and if he listens to this, I'm coming for you. No, but but like, no, but like, at the reality is like at some point, I'm sure our paths are going to cross again at an audition. But I think we've gotten to the point of where we respect each other, and like, that's my homie. He's, we're cool with each other. So before every audition we ever take, we play for each other, because we know like we only want each other to win. We only want each
Right.
other to succeed. And we both know that like we're good. Like he has a great job at second chair of Dallas, and I have a great job in St. Louis, and I had a great job before that in Toronto. So it's like I think we're fine. Like we don't have to totally. There's enough jobs out there for people. Well, that's a loaded
Yeah,
comment
yeah,
too.
that
But
can, yeah,
I know that gets a little like
that
whatever.
can be
But
a
you know what I'm saying though. It's
little
like
sketchy.
at
Yeah.
least, yeah. But at least for us, we feel like there's enough opportunities out there for the two of us that we don't feel too much like, oh, I can't play for this person, or I can't ask them or whatever, because oh, I have to like compete against them in the future. It's like, well, if we do, then we do, and then we'll just only be we'll just see what happens, and whoever wins wins, and maybe we both don't win. Who cares? Or maybe we
Well,
both do win, and that's what
right.
happens.
I mean, and it is an experience. I mean, and you do have process that, like you said, that you go through, and each experience is something different, or maybe something that you expect. You just know because you've done it enough times. So, um, question as far as like, so you've told me the process. So when you actually get, I guess, in the space, is it a room? Is it a stage? Are you walking behind the curtain? Are you not allowed to say anything? Like how, like what, like if I'm on the other side, like I'm not a panelist, or someone that is judging you. What would someone just sitting there expect?
So what happens is there's usually like 3 rounds. There's the preliminary round, there's a semi round, and then there's the final round. That's a pretty like standard, if you know. And at this point in my career with the previous work experience that I have, I don't have to usually do the preliminary round, which is nice because
Okay.
that's where they cut everybody. Like they can't wait to cut somebody. So semis and the finals is where I feel like the panel's really listening. So there's that. So usually what happens is there's a proctor. And I think maybe somebody else. So there's somebody else usually like walking the halls to like get people, and like what'll happen is it depends on the orchestra, but you are either all in like the same room warming up, and then before you personally have to play, because like you'll have to draw straws for the order. Um,
Mm. Okay.
Before you have to play, you'll be walked into a room and you'll get maybe like 10 or 20 minutes to yourself of just like whatever you need to do, tune, knock out a few of the excerpts that they may or may not tell you are going to be on the like what you have to play. Like the excerpts before coming, but you don't have to play all of them usually for like the semis and the probably like the prelims and the semis. For the final round, sometimes they don't tell you, sometimes they just ask, and like you just have to whatever. But usually I think they kind of tell you for almost every round what you're going to have to play. So anyway, you're back there, you're kind of like getting loose, warming up for all the stuff. Then you walk out on stage. Usually there's a screen, which I think is the best practice. I think there should be a screen for every single round. You can find me on the internet and fight me if you want, but this is what I believe. I think there needs to be a screen because people are biased. Like they just are. I am. Everybody is. Like I don't care what age. I don't care how you identify as anything. Whatever. You're gonna be
Hmm.
biased to some degree. Period.
Hmm.
Um, and if you don't believe it, you can test it with sharing a recording with your friends and not telling them who it is. I think that's like my favorite game of like playing a recording of somebody that I really like and not telling them who it is, and then having them listen not to the whole thing but enough of it, and then say whether they like it, and then tell them who it is. Because the second you hear, oh, it's Yo Yo Ma, oh, it's Itzhak Perlman, oh, it's whoever, they already have like whatever they think.
An idea in their head.
Um, Exactly. So the next thing is that usually when you walk on stage, there's a rug, which I think is really cool. And again, it's part of the bias issue. They put the rug down there so you couldn't hear heels
Hmm.
for the panel. So like I think, again, it's right there in front of you of just like getting rid of all the bias as much as possible. Funny thing though, I heard like tiny side story is that somebody told me that they can hear the difference between like when a male breathes and when a female breathes, which I was like, oh my, why are you listening that hard? Like I wouldn't even
Wow.
care. But that's a thing though. It's like, yeah, I heard that from I think it was a brass player told me that they could like tell the difference between, so I don't know what that means. Maybe we all have to wear like, like anti-breathing mask or something so you can't even tell. But no, but you know what I'm saying? It's like I think the point is that as little information, little outside information as possible, because like all we need to do is just listen to what the person is doing. Period. Um, and so that's really what it is. And then and then so you go out there and they'll say candidate whatever your number is. Feel free to start with your concerto or your Bach excerpt, or they may just say like you start with the list, whatever the list is, like right there, and then you play the list. Either you use your music or you can use the music that is on the stand. Some orchestras allow you to use an iPad, other orchestras don't. I have I don't understand why they think that using an iPad gives you an advantage. I think it really doesn't. I think they're
Really?
like afraid that,
So what's
yeah,
the
there's
theory?
like there's a lot of talk about that, like with they think that we're going to be like, either recording the audition, or we'll have a tuner out, or we're going to be like getting the metronome marking from our iPad. And it's like, okay, fine. Even if we did all three of those things, is the person going to play better? No, not necessarily. Like, and if you're using a tuner or like a metronome at that point, you're probably not ready for the job. So I don't understand it totally,
Also,
but
that just seems like a lot of extra work. Like, how are you
yeah,
going to be
it's
able
like,
to, finagle all of that, like, and then get ready to play? It's like, what? Okay.
yeah, I think it's just a lack of understanding of technology from a different generation. But that's okay. But that's why I love the screen.
Wow.
So, yeah.
That's funny. Um, okay. So that gives me more of an idea. And it's very interesting. Like, I would just love to observe that. And how many people are usually on the panel?
Depends on the orchestra, but it's probably like somewhere between like 9 and 11, like
Oh,
that.
wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So, okay. So now I'm just thinking of other things because it's kind of like big time solo and ensemble. Like everybody's just kind of sitting there judging. Um, okay. Yeah. I had thoughts, but then I can't figure out what exactly I want to ask. So maybe I'll come back to that later. Um,
Yeah.
oh, so when it comes to the excerpts, is there, like, I know when I was in college, you had your, like everybody, you have your standard, clarinet excerpts, things like that. So does it depend on the orchestra? Does it depend on maybe what they might be programming for concerts that year, or is it just always just these are your 15 excerpts that you need to know, and that's it?
I would say they're pretty standard. I mean, I think there's probably at least like 10 that are definitely gonna be on there.
Hmm.
Um, but it will vary for sure from orchestra to orchestra. Like Boston, I think you have to know like full pieces, which is like
Oh,
annoying.
wow. Okay.
So that's, yeah, it's like but the thing about that, usually they just end up asking what the normal excerpts are anyway from those full pieces. This is what I've been told. I've never taken a Boston audition, and there's a reason why, because I don't want to have to learn like, a whole Brahms symphony. I
Right.
think Boston is an audition that you would take like once you've already had some years in the business. I think because you've probably already played all that stuff, so it's not that big of a deal. Like, I think like maybe 5 years in the business, I would say then take Boston, because then you should be okay at that point. But as far as like all the other places, it's everything's pretty standard. What I like now personally is some orchestras are actually trying to try loosely trying to do a little bit of diversity work. So they'll put pieces on there that aren't well known. Like, for example, Seattle Symphony has a piece by Amy Beach. And I think that might be the first time I've ever seen a female composer
Okay.
on a audition. And I've been taking, this is probably like my 13th audition in my life. So to see that for the first time is I think that's pretty cool.
Okay.
So I'd say yet more of that, please. And don't get me wrong. I think there is validity to the standard because of just the way the business works, and two, it's just like, in a way, to have to change it for the older generation who's listening to us, that's what they grew up on. So it's like it's a little bit harder for them to, like, if they're trying to listen to a piece that they've never heard before and evaluating, and I don't know, I think that can make it confusing for them. Personally, I'm okay with evaluating somebody hearing a new piece. I don't mind, but whatever, I get it. So but at least trying, I appreciate that, trying to have more diversity. like, if I ever get the chance to be principal again, and have to do an audition, the first thing I always do is definitely put at least one or two um, composers on there that are from, at least in the 20th century or 21st century, and some
Okay.
diversity there too. So just
Yeah.
it's like, why not shake it up just a tiny bit? You may
Yeah.
not even have to ask that, but
Right.
just so that way people see, like, it's not just that's not just the only rep we play.
Right.
Um,
Right.
yeah.
Okay. Um, so when you are taking these auditions, like, are these auditions by invitation only? Is it like, um, do you go online? Are there things posted with, where you are? Like, if, you're with the St. Louis Symphony now, do they have like, hey, auditions coming up for Toronto and New York, or what, how do you find out about the auditions?
Sure. So there's a few ways to do that. American Federation of Musicians has a magazine that comes out like monthly, and you can subscribe to that magazine. And you can, at the back of the magazine, it'll have, like, a very antiquated way of doing this, but whatever. At the back of the magazine, they have like all the listings of jobs, like from every single orchestra. But also you can go on their website too, and I'm pretty sure that you can find the same thing. It's like a PDF version of their magazine, and you can find all the listings. Another way is musicalchairs.com or .org or whatever it is. Just put in the Google and you can find it, and then you just go to like performance, and then whatever your instrument is, click it, and then they usually have it listed. And sometimes, even if it doesn't make it to, sometimes they don't make it all the way to musical chairs. So you may have to just go to AFM, or you go on the orchestra's website, like stumble upon it and find it. But a lot of times, like so I think I'm in a group for, like, I think it's called like Sphinx Connect or something like that. It's on Facebook, and
Okay.
usually they list like all the auditions coming up too. I think it's just like it's like an AFM type of thing where they maybe just like go to what AFM says, copy paste, throw it in there. So there's definitely a few different ways of um, finding these auditions. I doubt other, like, when I was at Toronto or even here in St. Louis, I never saw listings for other orchestras. I don't think they do that. That's like, they want to keep you there ideally.
When you're in an orchestra, um, and I don't know if you can speak on the percentages of outside jobs that the orchestra members may have. Um, is that something that is typical? Is that something that is encouraged, discouraged? Is it just person on person basis?
What do you
Because I
mean by
know
outside job?
for, huh?
Like teaching, or like, what do you mean by an
Yeah,
outside job?
like
Like teaching, or like a
out.
real
So
estate agent, or like but
no. Well, that'd be interesting. But like, um, like my when I was in high school, my clarinet teacher was also the principal clarinetist of the Milwaukee Symphony Orchestra, and he also taught
Mhm.
at Northwestern University. So, is that pretty? I don't want to say standard, but is it kind of typical when it comes to or some orchestral members, or as far as them having other teaching jobs outside in addition to performing with the orchestra? And is it encouraged? Is it discouraged? Is it expected?
Um, I would say it's kind of just like it's up to you. Usually, what happens is the principal players kind of get like first dibs on that type of stuff, especially when it comes to colleges.
Okay.
St. Louis is a little weird because we don't really have a college that we're affiliated with. I think we used
Okay.
to, but there isn't one at this moment. So it's just kind of like a free for all, like with teaching and being affiliated with colleges and stuff. Um, so there's that. But actually going back to like the whole thing of like people having different jobs in general, like one of my best friends in Toronto, his name's Mike Chiarello or Chiarello. It doesn't matter. He won't care. Either one.
Okay.
But but he's a full blown like real estate agent. Like and
Okay.
he and honestly, it was probably one of the most inspiring things I've ever seen. Like him and my buddy Jonathan Chu, who's in St. Louis. He's a lawyer. Like he just he got
Wow.
his
Okay.
law. Well, he's like, I think he's in the process technically of getting his law degree, but he's almost done. Like should be pretty much done soon, within like a year or something. But like they did this during the pandemic, and
Okay.
it was so literally so inspiring to me because it's like everybody was talking about, oh, you have to find like this, you have to have a second job or all this type of stuff. And as a classical musician, you never think that. You're like, oh, it's fine. Classical music will be around forever. It's okay. Like we'll always make enough money. It'll be fine. And it's
Right.
just not true.
And then a
So
pandemic
just to
happens,
see
and
that
then
initiative. Right, exactly. And then to see that initiative taken from these people and to make it work and see how successful they are, like once we all came back to like whatever the new normal is, blah blah blah. But it's like that honestly, like I look at them to this day and just like, wow, like really super inspiring. So like, I mean, I kind of took to not social media, but I think I took a little bit to like audio and video engineering myself, like as my like side hustle or whatever. And I still kind of do that, for fun. But to really see them do like real jobs like that, and also hold down a symphony job to the level that they do. I mean, Mike in Toronto is his second chair bass, and Jonathan is third chair viola in St. Louis. So it's like it's not like they're low level jobs, or I mean there's not such a low level job in an orchestra, but it's as far as like they have to bring it. So it's they
right.
they're able to do it. They're able to make it work. And I think the reality is that some people think that well, this is another conversation, but I think that we only work 24 hours a week. At least the St. Louis Symphony does. I would say if you crunch the numbers, probably somewhere between 24 hours a week, and that's nothing. Like in the grand scheme of things, there's so much stuff that you could be doing if you wanted to, especially if you have tenure. Like, I mean, yeah, you have to practice and blah blah blah, but most likely you probably at this point in your life have seen most of the music that you're going to play. They usually say it takes about 5 years to kind of see most of the music that you're going to play. So
Mhm.
if you've been in the orchestra for about 5 years, I think almost at 5 years now. I started in 2018 and it's 2023, so about there. And I feel pretty comfortable. Usually when I come to see, it's not that I rarely see new music, but it's nothing that I feel like I'm like, oh my goodness, like how will I ever do this? I definitely had that my first few years for sure. There was some stuff that I was like, how do I do this? But now it's like we started with like Don Juan and Till Island Spiegel, and like we had like I think it was like two Strauss pieces and like something else
Oof.
like our very first week this year. Yeah, it was like the
God.
first concert of the season, and I was like, this is nothing. Like I was like
Right.
not phased by it at all because it's just like I'm just used to it now. So, um,
And like
but
some
yeah,
light
for a
work with
first year, I was
Strauss.
yeah, no, but it's true though. It's like when you're used to seeing it so many times and you've heard it, and like it's just like it's whatever, you know.
Yeah.
But anyway, going back to it, it's I think a lot of I mean, there's a person in the percussion section here. His name is Will, and he has a whole like website dedicated to helping people with orchestral excerpts, and it's definitely generating him a whole bunch of side money. So it's
Okay.
like you don't necessarily have to do something that's completely different. Like you can do something that's more or less like tangential to like what you're already kind of geared towards. But to just I don't know, to not do anything other than show up to work every day. I don't know. Is it really that exciting? I don't know. Maybe it is.
Okay. Okay.
I don't think so. Like, I don't think so.
Let's see. Oh, I wanted to speak to you about the pieces that I saw online that you did, Deep River, and the
Mm-hmm.
one that is dedicated to Elijah McClain.
Yep.
So specifically with those two, Deep River, I love hearing. There's so many um, variations of it being done, and so I that's one that I really like to listen to. how did you pick that, or why, or what was going on at the time?
So that was during the pandemic, and I think that was right after George Floyd um was murdered.
Mm-hmm.
Um I had played that piece before, like on violin, like years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I was just like, I was just I don't know, I was just in a place, mentally. I think a lot of us were,
Yep.
just kind of in a mental place, and I just felt like this is what I could contribute. It wasn't much, but it's just what I can do.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so one of my I'd say best friends growing up from elementary school is a fantastic writer, and we had collaborated before on a video in the past. And so I had seen something recently that he wrote about that kind of touched on what the climate of what was going on in the world, but wasn't necessarily specific to that moment, like the whole, the George Floyd. And so I reached out to him with the idea. I was like, "Yo, I got this idea. I love, it would be great if you could kind of write some words. It doesn't necessarily have to be like a poem or anything like that, but just do what you do. Here's the piece that I'm thinking." And just it's kind of related to what's going on with George Floyd and the world and all this stuff. So if you can kind of like just do your thing, I trust you, and we'll get back to making it fit. Obviously, that's really what it comes down to at the end, is like making the words fit with the video. For the at least for the original video, which the second video that the St. Louis ended up what's the word I want to use? They decided to produce themselves. Let's put it that way.
Mm.
The St. Louis
Okay.
Symphony produced a version of the same video, obviously with my permission. Like they asked me, and we got whatever. But yeah, so the original version has a whole bunch of words that go to it, and yeah, and then so I just I reached out to my friends, Michelle Can and Andrew Francois, who's also in the St. Louis Symphony with me, and I was like, "Yo, here's my arrangement." And we kind of just we just threw it together. I did all the audio engineering and video work and all that stuff, and yeah, and that's kind of it, and just put it out there.
Okay. And what about the one for Elijah McClain?
So that video originally was just an idea. It was like it did like the incident with Elijah, not incident, no, the murder. Sorry, let me use the
Right.
correct terminology. The murder of Elijah, that happened like while I was editing the video. So I was like, you know what? Like, and the thing that broke me about it was seeing him play the violin. So like that's why
Hmm.
I was like, this has to be for. I mean, it doesn't have to be, but it made sense to me that like
Right. Right.
again, I don't know what I can offer the world other than what it is I'm currently doing. So that's just kind of how it went. And then of
Right.
course I reached out to all the people who were involved in the video, and I was like, yo, I kind of want to like dedicate it to Elijah and everything that kind of happened. They were all like, yes, please, I totally understand. Like, let's do it, and that was it. So
Hmm. Yeah,
yeah,
the both of them were just beautifully done. Because I listened to them
thank
several
you.
times, and it's just um, when you just allow yourself to, if you just allow your thoughts to just kind of empty out of your mind and just listen to the music, um, and knowing what the background and the meaning of it, of the Elijah's murder, and just Deep River just has such a long history in our, for Black people, and just everything that we have gone through. Um, to me, it was just yeah, it was just beautiful. It was, like I said, it was just beautifully done.
Thank you.
And just to, like I said, I just, we all have a moment, whether it be, just in life, we just have so many moments. And I just remember as I was scrolling through your stuff, and just listening to all the recordings, I was just like, oh, this is really, because I think for Deep River, I was having a moment like a few weeks ago, and I was just like, okay, this is, do I want to listen to this? Because do I really want to go there? But then I'm like, yep, you know what? let me just let it go because things happen for a reason. So yeah,
I guess.
so it was great. You did fantastic job. Um,
Thank you.
so um, let's see what's your favorite piece to perform?
Hmm.
And I know that's hard to ask a musician because it's like, what's your favorite song? You ask a music teacher that, and it's like, well, I constantly have 10 songs going on in my head at the same time. So,
I think the cliche answer is whatever I'm currently performing. That's what everybody always says, which I hate. Because I mean, you have to do that mentally. You have to do that mental gymnastic for sure. Like you have to love the piece that you're currently playing. But of course, you have favorites, right? Um, Personally, I don't know. I think I'm currently learning it.
okay.
Actually, and
Okay.
not to be that person. Like it's a piece that I've never played before that I'm actually trying to learn right now. And I occasionally I like I take chunks of it and then I like put it away for a little bit. Take chunks, put it away. It's the Carmen Fantasy for it's like by I mean, there's so many different versions, but it's the by Waxman, and it's a version that I got from. Well, it's kind of like a Frankenstein version, I guess, from like different people because so many different violists have made arrangements of it. So I'm just kind of
Hmm.
like, take a little bit here, take a little bit there. So that's currently what I'm like working on loosely. Definitely one of my favorites. Once it's hopefully learned in the next decade, but hopefully learned at some point, and then orchestrally the thing I think so far that I've played that I've loved the most is Vaughn Williams, Thomas Tallis. Like
Mm.
that, I got lucky. I was lucky enough to play that with Toronto, and it was like one of my favorite experiences of all time. I mean, I was super scared. Oh, that's not totally true. I wasn't really super scared, but it was just it was I mean it was super exposed for a principal viola, so I was just like, all right, well, let's do it. And it's the principal viola has to kind of go back and forth with the concert master, so it was just a really exciting time to be kind of engaging in that conversation with the concert master at the time. And so I really cherish that memory. I have a recording of it on that I saved from the archives, and occasionally I listen to it just to reflect on that moment and also what I sounded like at that time too. Because like
Hmm.
obviously I'm trying to always be better, so it's like,
Hmm.
well, it's film, but
Hmm.
it's like film from looking at like a playoff game you won. You know what I mean? So it's like it's
Right.
not like
Right.
something like
Right.
yeah.
Okay. Cool. Um,
Yeah.
how would you encourage other string players, black specifically, people of color, when they are
Mm.
in a situation of being the only one or one of few, um, and you I can speak on my personal experience when I was in college because I went to University of Wisconsin, um,
Mm-hmm.
and I remember that at some point
Go Badgers.
I was the only one,
Mm-hmm.
and it was, and I knew. Look, I'm not stupid because I'm just like, okay, I know going into this field, there's not going to be a lot of us around, so I knew that part, and especially kind of being in Wisconsin, got it. However, it still was lonely, and I remember my freshman year, and it might have been end of first semester, maybe going into second semester, and I called my mom, and I was like crying, and I'm just like, I don't know if I can do this. This sucks. I'm by myself, and I don't have
Mm-hmm.
anybody to talk to, and blah
Mm-hmm.
blah blah. And there was one person who was actually my first guest on my on the podcast that I haven't released yet. But just seeing him, it was just seeing him that just automatically just made me feel at ease. He's a singer. He's on Broadway. He's been doing his thing for like the last 30 years. Very successful singer, actor, doing his thing. And I remember I told him, I was like, just seeing you meant so much. because I knew that I wasn't the only one. And so I know that there are a lot of us that may feel that way. So what would you say could, is encouraging, you know?
I mean, I think you pretty much said it right there. Is that you're not the only one. Um, I would love to give two shout outs. I know there are more, but the two that I lean on the most are the Sphinx organization for sure. They have a great network of multiple generations of amazing classical musicians. That I think are, it just you just tap in, try to get involved, whether it's the academy or whether it's the competition or it's the empowered grants. I'd say get involved, see what it's about, look up sphinxmusic.org. I'm pretty sure that's the website. If it isn't, just search Sphinx Music, and you'll be fine. And then the other organization that I would look into is the Black Orchestral Network. I know I think they're a little bit newer than Sphinx for sure. But I mean, when I was going through my stuff, I think I leaned on them so much, and I know that I would not have been able to get on the other side, or on the other, essentially the other side of all of it, with the positive spirits that I have. Honestly, like, I mean, yeah, I make jokes about the situation here and there, and of course, maybe everybody's a little bit bitter every now and then. But the reality of it all is that, like, I don't think I would have been able to get through what I had to go through if it wasn't for them. Um, Being the only black person in any space, but let's just call it what it is, because we're talking about orchestra. Being the only black musician in an orchestra is extremely scary. For pick whatever reason why, but there's
Right.
so many. Because are okay, so are you here because you're black?
Yeah.
And then now that you're here, are they judging you even harder because you're black? Or how good are you allowed to play, or what level should you play at, so that way you meet whatever expectation that those 9 people may want you to play at, because they may be threatened by you being different. And they talk about diversity, but if they're trying to
Oh my
cull you
God.
into something, then how diverse can you really be? So do you want visual diversity, but you want us to be a certain way that's already been established, or do you want us to actually be diverse and give you diversity? Because isn't that the whole point? So that's, obviously I'm tapping into clearly some stuff, but it's just that, you I think the short answer is reach out to these already established networks, because you'll be surprised how many of us are out there, and how many of us have gone through exactly, if not exactly, similar situations, for that are worse, or not as worse, or whatever that even means. So a side note is that, I mean, I was lucky in a way, because like my sister technically has a different father than I do, but
Mm.
whatever, family. And her great uncle, so her father's uncle is Booker Rowe, who is, I think, the first black violinist in the Philadelphia Orchestra, and he was there in the 70s. So me and him are very close. Like, I grew up with him. I was Thanksgivings, Christmas, all that. Like, we used to hang, we used to play together, blah blah blah. And I remember when I stepped with the Philadelphia Orchestra for the first time, I remember talking to him about racism, because I think I was still in college, and like something weird had happened at school,
Mm.
involving race. And I, like, everybody at Philadelphia Orchestra was talking about it, because of course, Philadelphia Orchestra and Curtis are like so close, like network wise. So everybody knew what was kind of was going on. And so I remember like talking to him about what was happening. I was like, yo, like, anything ever happened to you, like while you were, I mean, I couldn't imagine, like, this is in the 70s. Like, I couldn't imagine what happened to y'all. So, we talked about it and stuff. So it's like knowing that literally, like, classical music is, at least for me personally, has gone back that far to the 70s. So I have like somebody that I can talk to about,
Yeah.
like, you know, what it's like being black in classical music and in a major orchestra. And I can lean on that. And then even other people who are more recent, like Joe Conyers, I talk to him all the time. Like anytime anything interesting happens to me in classical music, I always reach out to Joe. And he's been, I mean, look at him. He's a strong guy. he's, he's been amazing. And I lean on him as much as I can about how to just navigate through this stuff because it's treacherous, it's hard. So
Right.
just, yeah. So like
Right.
for anybody who's young out there, just reach out. Seriously. We all want to help.
Okay. 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 I like that. That's a great great answer. Um, uh, what would you tell your younger self? Just whether it be something musical or just something that happened in life, or maybe you wouldn't tell them nothing.
I don't know. I mean, a few things come to mind, but it's hard because I mean, like I say, I'm only 32, which like that idea is like kind of interesting because like in the grand scheme of things, like especially in the classical world, you're like young, and like in life, you're also young-ish, but you're not. Like like my back hurts. But anyway, so I would say,
Oh, wait till you get to 40. Many more
lucky
things
me.
will
I
happen.
know.
So,
Can't wait. No, but like I one thing that I think I struggle with now is just like trying stuff. Like I keep my like I there was a period of where I was like more willing to just like go out and like try different things and like post a video on Instagram or post a video somewhere and like not really care. And I think that part of me is not as comfortable doing that. But I also don't know because that may be a career choice because I think
mm-hmm.
I don't know, sometimes when like I'm one of those people that kind of like I want to sneak up on you like in an audition. I don't want you like knowing what I sound like in this period of where I'm not like if I'm preparing for something, I want you to know what I sound like. Like I
Right.
want you to just be like, wow, like that's
Right.
it. This person came out of nowhere. Not like, oh, because like the second you have an idea of what I sound like, then you have an idea of what I sound like. And then you're already like you've made your
You're
judgment or
like
assessment.
you said,
And
you
I
make the
think just
biases.
being off the radar.
Hmm.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like I just want to be off the radar, especially now and with everything that's kind of went on. It's like I'd rather just be off the radar until you hear me play, and then you're like, "Wow, okay, my bad." Like that was awesome. So
Got
that's kind of where I think potentially where I'm at now with when it comes to like creating content and stuff like that. I think once I'm more settled in my life with where I'm at, or if I stay in St. Louis, or blah blah blah, it's like I think I would find myself returning to making more content for sure. But I think I'm at a place where right now I just don't want people to hear me play online unless it's yeah. I just don't really want people to hear me play online. I'd rather you hear me in an audition or a concert, and then that's when you hear me. I don't know. That's just where I'm at right now mentally.
okay.
Um, the other thing, but as far as like being it, like what I would tell my younger self is just like, yo, keep like you're good enough. Don't listen to like don't let the outside results dictate how you feel about yourself.
Okay.
So like I there have been times where okay, like perfect example when I was on trial for co-principal of London Phil, like my last 2 years at Curtis, and that didn't work out for whatever reason, and I just kept it pushing, and then a few years later, took Toronto, won fully, and sat in that chair, and you know the 10-year outcome, that's a whole different conversation. So just like not letting like the outside world validate your worth, because classical music is so subjective. Like it's not even like with like the nice thing about sports is that if I put up 45 points on you with like 20 boards and 10 assists, you can't say I'm bad, period. But
Right.
you can't really do that with classical music. I can't put up I swear I was putting up 45 boards and 20, all that type of stuff every game, every single concert.
Right.
I was going ham every concert, every rehearsal.
Right.
But somehow they can say, "Oh, well, blah blah blah, whatever they said. So it's like you can't you just have to do you and hope hope because like you never know, it may not happen, or it just may go a different route, whatever, which is fine too. You have
Right.
to be flexible enough to like know that your life can take a different route, and that's like totally fine. And you'll have to make peace with that, but it's just like you can't let people dictate how you're supposed to feel about yourself. And the other thing that I'm not one to quote Kanye West, but the one that I will quote, the one thing that I will quote is from his documentary when he is Genius, when he talks about making opportunities for yourself. And I think that is a really big thing in classical music that people sleep on more so than they think. Because all the time you're like, oh, well, I have to get into Juilliard or else I'm not good enough. Oh, I have to get into Curtis or I'm not good enough. I have to get into Marlborough or I'm not good enough. I have to join the Philadelphia
Yep.
Orchestra at the age of 25 or I'm not good enough. I have to be principal by 30. I'm not good enough. It's like all these checkpoints of X, Y, and Z that like that doesn't mean you're not good enough. It's just like it is what it is. Like stuff happens how it happens. And also these people who are on these panels, it's not like they're all high fits. They don't all know. And maybe like when they listen to you, they didn't have lunch yet, and so they just really want to go to lunch, and they just don't advance you. And you could have been the best one there.
That is true.
Like you just there's stuff that you can't like control and stuff like so. That's why I think I really started taking more to social media, especially during the pandemic, and it really worked out for me. Like to be honest, like my goal was to make. So we took a pay cut in St. Louis, right? Like a pretty big pay. I think it was like 60%. Well, we were bringing in 60% of our salary. We didn't take a 60% pay cut. That'd have been wild.
Ooh.
Um,
Like, wow.
yeah, no,
Okay.
it's like man, I need a job, but
Dang.
yeah, job. But anyway, so I was like, you know what, I need to make like at least like $10,000 to $15,000 like during the pandemic, just on the side somehow, right? And so that all I exceeded that first off, and the way I exceeded it was from making videos. And the thing is that it wasn't like I made a video and then somebody was like, here's money. It wasn't like that. I made a video, somebody saw that video and then wanted to do a collaboration later that led to me getting a gig for something else later. So it's like people think like, oh, you need to make these videos and you'll get a big following and that's how the money comes in. It's like, no, because our industry still exists. A lot of it really exists in the real world, like the now. So
Mhm.
a lot of the stuff I was doing was just like kind of just promoting what I was doing, like promoting like how I can play,
Right.
so that's really what I did, is just I just made videos with some of my friends, and I got lucky. I got to play with the principal violist of St. Louis Symphony, Beth, who's like a good friend of mine. But I'm super lucky. She's a beast of a violist, and and then the Elisa Diaz, who is Roberto Diaz's wife, who's like my former teacher at Curtis, and played with her. And I've used both of those videos to this day for opportunities for like subbing with orchestras or anything really, like just gigs in general, like people. And I did all that stuff during the pandemic, so it's still like those little videos I made is still bringing me money now to this
Hmm.
day.
So, what brings you joy? And it doesn't have to be one specific thing. It could just,
Like
what
musically or
makes you
just in
just
general?
gener- it could be both musically or just in general.
Mm,
Maybe looking at cat videos or dog videos, just
that's
that's your
not me.
thing.
Well, I love soccer, but I mean, I'll stay in music because I think the thing, especially with black people and classical music, I think it's rare to find somebody that's like a geek for it. You know what I'm saying? Like
That is so
it's
true.
not it's not like normal, and it's not really condoned amongst the community to be like a geek about I don't know, anything. Let's go with anything. And so I'll stay in classical music to talk about what I love about it, and because I know hopefully people, when they listen or watch this, they'll realize it's like, I hopefully don't come all across as a geek. I mean, the Eagles play tonight. Like I can't wait. Like this is I'm
Right.
just
Right.
whatever. But
Right.
um, but a few things I'll say is that it's like I, you know, there are two jobs in I think the world, maybe three, that you like the verb of what you do is to play. Sports and music. That's about it. Maybe you can throw in acting if you want. But that's about it. And so the fact that I get to play for a living, literally, I get to play for a living. Like, of course, I have to practice and blah, blah, blah. Like, I have to prepare, duh. But
Right.
at the end of the day, after all that preparation, when you see me in concert, I'm having fun. I'm smiling. I'm, just having a good time, like moving. I'm doing my thing. Like, I'm literally playing. I'm having a blast. Like, all I have to do is make sounds for my living. All these other people have to like crunch numbers and do all these crazy things, or like put up scaffoldings and like all this stuff.
Yeah.
And like I'm just over here
Right.
like making sounds with a wooden box for like 30 years, and then I get to call it a day. Like it's
Right.
great.
Right.
So that's one thing that I love. And then this, another part of music that I love is, it's that there aren't many things out there that give me that that goosebump chill, right? Everybody knows what that is. Like, you go to church and you really feel the spirit, or you hear a song that you really like, or, whatever you want to call it. Like, there's a bunch of things that cause that phenomenon to happen. There's a scientific reason behind it all. But the point is that there aren't many things in life that allow that for you to have that happen. Now, imagine if that was happening while you were working. Is that what's happening to most people while they're working? I'm saying it's like to be able to
Right.
feel apps like biological, like it's literally biological joy and sensations and emotions while you're doing your job for 30 plus years. It's awesome. Like I
Yeah.
can't think of anything else I'd rather be doing. There's only, this and this soccer and sometimes like video games cause that for me, like to have that goosebump thingy. But other than that, like, there aren't many things. And so the fact that I can do one of those things as a profession for my entire life is awesome. And then the
Okay.
other thing that I love the most about music is teaching. I'd say I love it as much as performing, if not more. And I care about it as much as performing, if not more.
Hmm.
Um, Seeing the look on a kid's face when they understand how to do it, whatever it is. If when they figure out the path, especially when they've been like, I love finding kids who like especially like orchestra excerpts, because I'm like pretty big on like helping kids with orchestra excerpts, but just in general, I mean, it doesn't matter, but especially orchestra excerpts, because I work on them a lot. When I like teach a kid some orchestra excerpt and there's a passage, because this happens all the time, you get to a spot that you just stumble on every time you get to an audition, you don't know how to fix it, blah blah blah, and I show them like what I do, and maybe that doesn't work, but or we'll come to some like combination of what they're doing versus what I'm doing or whatever, and then they get it, and then they get it again, and they get it again, and then they're not missing, and then they're just like, oh my gosh, I shattered whatever belief I thought like I
Yep.
couldn't do X. And
Yep.
that is like better than most things in life. Literally just that feeling of knowing that you like shifted that mindset that they can do, fill in the blank. It's just that moment of like realizing you can do it is you can't buy it. So
Okay. Yeah. I know what that's like. So I definitely agree with you on that. Having been teaching for such a long time, um, one of the joys that I get is when, because I've been teaching long enough that now my first set of sixth graders at the particular school that I'm at now have graduated from college. So I'm like, oh, all right.
whoa,
Um,
that's awesome.
yeah. Um, but it's great when they come back and visit and they remember some of the conversations that we've had. And now that they're adults, they're like, how were you able to do this with these kids? Now these kids are so much worse. And how do you have the or just other epiphanies that they have, that they were just like, I remember when you kept fussing us at us about blah 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 blah, and I get it now, and I'm just like, that's what it's all about. That's what it's all
Yeah.
about. It, it's not about me being right. It's just a matter of you get
Yeah.
it, and now you understand. So, and I'm glad that you came back to let me know that it wasn't in vain, and that you're going through life, and yes, you're struggling because we all struggle. But that's just a part of life, and that's what creates growth. But yeah,
Yeah.
it is a joy. Whether it be the middle schoolers that I work with, like you said, they go over something and they don't believe in themselves, and then you break it down and then they finally get it, or like the adults that I used to teach now that are just like, oh yeah, we understand now. So yeah, it's a joy.
I mean, sometimes like I even enjoy the collegiate level a little more because their brain has become so hardened into believing like that's who they are. Like with kids, it's a little easier. Like they can still pretend and do like peekaboo and like like Santa Claus still exists and stuff like that. Like so they
That's
can
right.
at the end of the day the mental gymnastics for them is a lot easier. But when you get like a college kid who's taken I don't know. I've met a lot of these kids, like 25 auditions, and they mess up the same excerpt every single time. And then finally, they are able to do the thing that they've always messed up. It's like that. I mean, whew, great. Can't beat it. So,
Yeah, that is true.
but I agree. Yeah, I'm
Um,
with you.
so music, book, TV show, movie. Do you have any suggestions? Is there something that
Ooh,
you're watching now that you are really into, as far as a book, TV show, series that you just can't get enough of,
yeah.
or a genre of
I
music that
mean,
you're really into?
lately I've been getting into like Afro beats. I've been listening a lot to DeVito. Um,
Okay.
Yeah, but hold on. I think I mean it's great and all to listen to have different genres of music, but I think a book is probably a little bit better. Um, the
It's
book that
whatever you
I'm
want
currently the book that I'm currently reading right now is called The Daily Stoic, and it's by Ryan Holiday and Stephen Hanselman, and it's 366 meditations on wisdom, perseverance, and the art of living. And essentially, what it is just like every day you just read about. It's like a page, maybe at the most. Like, and each day it correlates with like the day of the year. So, you just
to.
read and page a day, and it's like each month has a new topic, and it's I mean it's really helped me in so many ways. Like a lot of the skills that they talk about. I mean, so all right, let me back up. Sorry. What happens is it'll be a quote from like somebody like Marcus Aurelius or Plato or Socrates or something like that, and then after that there'll be like another paragraph from like Ryan talking about like what does it mean and how does it apply to what's going on today,
Mhm.
and so much of that stuff I use with students, or I mean, especially myself, but definitely with students. And as an example, one of the ones that I really um, latch on to is stacking days, and I think that one's a really helpful one for people who struggle with long-term goals, and especially with in our industry with classical music, it's very hard to like we were just talking about preparing for an audition. That's a 6-week process, sometimes 8 weeks. So it's like that's a
Mhm.
long time to be trying to go from point A to point B and staying motivated and doing the right thing every day. So the point of stacking days is what you want to do is have essentially a successful day, and then you just do it again tomorrow. You don't think about, oh, I have to be the best violist in the world by, January, whatever the date is. Like, I think it's like February or something, but it doesn't matter. I have to be the best violist, like, in 2 months. It's not that. It's like, I have to do exactly what I did yesterday and just do it again the next day and just do it again and just do it again and do it again. Just keep putting the one foot in front of the other every single day and just go day by day. And people use that. They talk about, using it for weight loss or using it for addictions, whatever it is, stuff like that, that
Mm,
takes like long time to kind of like change who you are. But stacking days has been extremely helpful personally, and also for a lot of the people that I like, students I work with, of just understanding like, don't look too much, like don't try to imagine too much of like, what you gotta be in 4 years from now when you're done college. Like, just what you do today, you practice your scales for 2 hours, you did an hour of etudes, and you did an hour of score study. Okay, tomorrow, what are we doing? 2 hours of scales, 1 hour etudes, 1 hour score study. And you just stack them and you just do it. And then, you look 2 months later, you look back and you're like, wow, look at me now. And then, but
right.
with some people, depending on the situation you're in, obviously, like, 4 years, 2 months, whatever it is. But just knowing that using that stacking days method is really helpful to kind of just ideally focus you into the now, and not focus too much on what you're not yet.
Okay. All right.
What you're not yet, I
Cool.
guess. Yeah.
Cool. Well, I am just thrilled that we had this conversation. This has been something that, like a lot of things, the pandemic, people come up with, after being forced to be still. That's what I'm trying to say. Um, I just thought to
Mm-hmm.
myself, I want to talk to people of color that are in the fine arts, teaching different levels, professional, semi professional, and just because everybody has a story. Everyone has a story. Um, and Whether, good, bad, everything in between, because not everybody's experience is the same. Not everybody has a bad experience. Some people have had a good experience. They've been blessed to have had just, nothing but positivity, and I think that needs to be told as well. And there have just been too many of our stories that haven't been told and are still currently hidden and or being discovered and released to the public. And this is just something, like I said, this is what's giving me joy and is fulfilling me, because it's like I need to talk to people. I want to talk to other people of color, Black people that are just doing their thing. So when Matt told me, he was just like, "Oh yeah, you gotta contact these people," and I was like, "Yay, this is gonna make me happy." So, um, so I am very grateful and thankful for you to have taken the time out of your day and your evening to talk to me, and I really appreciate it. So very much.
Of course. Thanks for hitting me up. Happy to talk.
Yeah,
And this is fun for sure. So
yeah. So, oh, and then also, if you know of anyone else that would be interested in, possibly doing this, that I could have a conversation with, I would definitely, shoot it in an email, and I would love to reach out to them. So,
for sure. Yeah.
so, um, everyone, tonight, this has been like I said, episode 2 of Dynamically Melanated Gifted Artist. I had the pleasure of talking to Mike Casimir, violist in the Symphony of St. Louis, and this has been great. So it's been wonderful.
Thank you.